Welcome back. Let's head straight to the markets now. We have Anita editor with the details. Great to have you, Anita. So definitely, we saw a blistering first half for the local bourse, over 30% gain, about 33%. But it seems the second half is starting off quite slow. Marginal gains for the month and for the second half of 2024.
Well, Ladi, I would say that it's too early to call because today is just the 9th day and we've had just about, if I would count right, about 6 trading days so far in the month of July. And of course, you mentioned that it started off in a negative. The negative is no thanks to, it was just a blip, 0.01% negative pullback for Monday's trading session, and this came largely on Transcor's share price pullback. Investors had some time to take profit there, but at the same time, we also saw some activities at the market where the NGX suspended about 8 companies for their failure to file their respective financial accounts for 2023.
Right, and you said it's too early. It's early days to judge. But I have comments from Professor Uche Waleke, and he said categorically that the second half of 2024, we're going to see a massive correction.
Okay, that's second half, but we were actually in third half. Okay, second half.
The second half of 2024.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's saying massive correction is coming. So who knows? Maybe it's going to happen.
But I'm actually looking out for, first of all, starting off the month before you now talk about the second half and then the third quarter, because all of this come into play. Let's not forget, yes, you mentioned this, so far, Nigerian stock market is still the best performing stock market on the African continent. And of course, there's still so much issues that can drive that uptrend, because don't forget, it's the era of capital raising by banks, as well as some other market fundamentals. We're still going to expect a flurry of activities which will drive the market. So I think maybe most likely we can
see if Professor Uche Waleke is right. We'll definitely find out.
Only time will tell.
Only time will tell.
All right. So now let's talk about the intraday market numbers. For intraday, we saw the NGX pull back from the 100,000 points, which it closed on Monday in the red, and then still picking up from that Monday's downturn, and 0.13% the last time we tracked the market at 99,879.88. And for the South African market, we see there in the positive, Nigerian stock market was the only laggard there at intraday. Well, we saw South Africa's stock market 0.07% in the green at intraday. On the other side of the market, we see intraday numbers for EGX as stock exchange. That's the EGX 30, 0.03% uptrend, and the Kenya Stock Exchange for Monday, 0.86% in the green. Now, that is for the Nigerian stock market. Now, we were talking about the capital raisings before we get to Middle East market. So, so far, we've seen lots of activity from the banking space of Nigeria's financial market, where we see lots of capital raisings on the sides of public offers as well as rights issue. So now let's talk more about this, and we have Larry Bluro, the Managing Director, Capital Markets at Chapel Hill, to drill more on this issue as well as some other issues relating to capital raisings. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Larry Bluro.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Okay, it's a pleasure. Now, let's start first. We've seen, we seem to have entered the era or the season of capital raisings by banks. First, we saw a couple of weeks ago, Fidelity Bank targeting 127 billion naira. Then just yesterday, GTCO announced that they seek to raise about 400 billion. And today, as we speak, we're seeing Access Bank targeting 351 billion naira rights issue for its investors. Now, can you tell us what is the specific opportunities that the banking sector holds for investors within the Nigerian markets?
Thank you. I mean, as you're aware, the president of the country did mention, for us to have $1 trillion economy, our banking sector needs to be equipped and well prepared to support that growth. And on the back of that, we saw the CBN governor, push out policies around bank recapitalizing their balance sheets. And we've seen numerous announcements in the sector. You've mentioned a couple. We launched the Access Bank rights issue yesterday for 351 billion. And the opportunity is quite immense. I think it's a good time for the economy, a good time for investors, particularly, the banking sector investors. These are already very liquid companies in terms of listings on the exchange. This will further deepen the market. These are strong banks. The history of banks in Nigeria, particularly listed ones, they pay dividends. They trade, and I think it's an opportunity for investors to deepen their ownership, particularly around the very strong banks that are in our markets today.
Okay, so now you mentioned something about the Access Bank, which is actually the signing show of eyes as we speak, and Chapel Hill Denham has built a strong track record of raising capital in the Nigerian capital market. Now, can you tell us, as a leading issuing house on the Access Holdings right issue, how do you think this transaction will impact the markets?
Oh, it will. I mean, Access Bank is the largest bank in Nigeria by balance sheets, also the largest bank by customer base in the continent. They've been investing into the business over a couple of years. As you know, you've seen various announcements around their entry into other markets in Africa. They also have different verticals in pensions, in payments. This capital raise just helps consolidate that and further those investments. To be quite clear, just to announce to the audience, Access has been raising capital irrespective of what the CBN had announced for the sector to do. So they're really in line with what the regulator wants the sector to be. If you also recollect, they actually announced their capital raise before the CBN announced the sector-wide capital raise. So this just further consolidates what their plans have always been. Again, I think as a brand, given what they've done in terms of innovation, in terms of products they brought to the market, this capital raise, we expect, it will be successful. And I think, as we mentioned, this opened yesterday, will be closing on August 14th, and we look forward to the support from their shareholders, which, by the way, is very, very diverse. We have a domestic pension funds who are very strong holders in this brand. Foreign investors are also shareholders in the bank, and a very, very deep retail base, which they've built over the last 30 years. And in our engagement so far, the feedback has been very positive, and this is going to be well supported.
Okay, so far, I would mention that we've had so far 2 Tier-1 lenders approaching the market, and then 1 Tier-2, which is almost attaining a Tier-1 status. Now, what other banks do you see approaching the market within the second half of 2024?
Again, everyone has indicated what their plans are. We are aware of another Tier-1 bank. I mean, the brand was at the NGX yesterday announcing their upcoming transaction. There another Tier-1 bank which we're working with very closely. We know they are going through the regulatory process, and that also be very, very imminent. So very likely you might see all the Tier-1 banks and two Tier-2 banks possibly open within this window by Q3.
Okay, so thank you so much, Mr. Lanre Buluro, Managing Director, Capital Markets at Chapel Hill, for that information on the bank's capital raisings. Right. So now let's talk about the Middle Eastern markets, where we see mostly positive movement at intraday, because we had a positive there. But at intraday, we saw the market all having their eyes on the Saudi Aramco's dollar-denominated bonds debut, which the offer begins today and is set to conclude on July the 17th. We've seen, first of all, the state-owned firm is making its return after a 3-year hiatus, where it initially had raised about 6 billion naira from a 3-tranche sukuk, or what you call an Islamic bond. So this is the second time in 3 years that Saudi Aramco will be coming to the market for a bond offer. And talking about the market, where we see a 0.05% for the Abu Dhabi and a 0.13% for the Dubai FM, both on the United Arab Emirates. On the other sides of the market, we see Saudi Arabia, which we talked about there, 0.16% at intraday. And for the Qatari Stock Exchange, 0.02% at intraday at 10,158.86 points for that market. Now let's flip over to the United States, where we see stock futures rising slightly after the S&P 500 as well as the Nasdaq hitting a fresh record on Monday. So for the futures, which opened just today, the Dow Jones Industrial Average still tracking that positive close on Monday, 0.12% at 39,000, almost at the 40,000 level, which is quite a historic high. For the S&P 500, way past the 5,000 level at 0.25% for the futures, and for the Nasdaq tech heavies, 0.40%. Now, first of all, the markets will be eyeing, the investors are eyeing two key inflation reports. First is the Consumer Price Index, which will be released on Thursday, and the Producer Price Index will be released on Friday. That's on the economic side. But for the corporate news, the market earnings reports will be released by PepsiCo, Delta Airlines, while bank earnings, which also will be expected due out on Friday, will be from Citigroup as well as JP Morgan. So this is how it ended. This is how it begins for the U.S. market, but we get to see how it closes the day for Tuesday. So, Ladi, if time may permit, maybe I could talk about the Asian markets.
So much at this point, investors in the U.S., all they want to know is when are they going to get the first rate cut?
The first rate cut
in 2024, and definitely we've seen the Fed, push that, back forward. A bit, trying to let them know, just relax. When it's time, we're going to cut. We don't want to cut too early, but we know how investors are. Thank you so much, Niete, for the details right there. All right.